Hello and welcome to Wires from the Deep, a Silo series podcast. Today is Saturday, December 28, 2024, and you're listening to episode 22, 20,000 Leagues into the Silo. My name is Crystal Watanabe.
And I'm Angela Traficante.
And today we're going to be breaking down Silo Season 2, Episode 7, The Dive. Although it doesn't go straight into Juliet's dive, it first takes us to Silo 18, to a scene that a lot of us have been waiting for a long time.
I
Which
definitely
is,
have, yeah.
Bernard takes Lukas into the vault. And it's something that I think strict show watchers have only just been introduced to the idea of Lukas being Shadow, but for book readers, we've been waiting a long time.
We've been wondering why they were dancing around this plot line.
Yeah, that's why it was so perplexing that Lukas got sent to the mines. I was like, oh, okay, so is he never gonna become Shadow? I was like, how is he getting out of this? But I guess they had a way to do it. So, but he's right back where we thought he was going to be in the first place. So that was exciting. And it was nice to see him actually going into the vault, because so far we've only seen Bernard take medals in there and she just didn't seem to care at all, right? It was like old hat for her. She didn't it was nothing to her. So
and now we get to be Lukas, right? Learning about what it is. Whereas, like you said, with Meadows, there was no reason for there to be any on-screen explanation of anything.
Yeah, and the contrast in his before life and his now life is pretty stark, right? He was literally mining metal in some mysterious location in the silo as punishment that was likely to lead to death, and now he's at the top of the silo, literally at the top of the power structure.
I think it's funny though, because I think he still realizes that even though his position's better and different, he's still a prisoner. He's still at Bernard's whims and mercy over here.
Yeah.
And the fact that Bernard even explicitly says oh, you're gonna stay here while you get acquainted with the legacy, definitely felt like oh, you're trapped here.
It's still a step up though. But yeah, so he takes him in and he gives him a brief rundown of where things are. I think to the left was the living quarters, right? When you walk in, and you kind of see it looked like some kind of display, like a fake window. It looked like mountains and greenery or something. It was super brief though.
Yeah, there were a lot of displays in the entire library, and they all changed. So yeah, they have some sort of screen technology for showing you things.
Yeah, and so I think the legacy was to the right. I didn't really pay attention to where they were walking around, but basically,
I honestly was not paying attention.
The legacy is a giant library, and Lukas is just in awe, right? At all the books, it's floor to ceiling books, and there's a whole astronomy display hanging from the middle. There's art hanging on the walls. There's relics everywhere and displays, and it's just a cool looking room, right?
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of the art was not the right size. So I wonder if these were reproductions and every silo was given the same set of pieces of art, because the art that you see on the walls that are all very famous paintings, and almost none of them are the right size they're supposed to be and stuff. So it did make me think do all the silos have the same books and art, and was everything fitted the same, or is this some sort of experiment where they gave different people different things?
Yeah. I mean, I guess my first thought was that they would all have been given different art, because I mean, there's a lot of art in the world, so I didn't think that they would be able to give put all of it, or even a significant portion of it, or even the most important ones in just one legacy, right? Because it's a big room, but it's also not that big of a room in the scheme of humanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's clear to me, at least, that that the actual bulk of what they have is probably digital.
Yeah.
And the relic portions with the books and the art and the other things are just supposed to be a selection.
Yeah. So he tells him that all the books is just a fraction of what they have, and that most of it is digital, and then he basically hands him an iPad. Product placement. And then he tells him something that was really interesting. he tells him that when he became first he first became IT head, that he had questions, and that the best he could tell, the silos were built 352 years ago, which is a significant chunk of time. It's older than the United States. Like 352 years is, if like they were built this year, that's quite a bit in the future, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, even 143, which was like the time that we had been given, that seemed like a really long time, but this is like more than twice that.
Yeah,
So,
that year surprised me, or that amount of years surprised me a little. I definitely figured it was like over 200. I didn't know that I would have thought it was quite as old as 352.
hmm,
And I assume that's like a real number too, because Bernard's like very specific
yeah,
about it. So it kind of
yeah,
seems like he heard it from something like in the legacy
hmm,
or some other thing that like verified it for him.
yeah. So I had subtitles on in the beginning, and it when the computer talks, when he tells Lucas to give his name and his position, and it logs him in as IT Shadow. It says the algorithm, so I guess that's what the computer's called, which I thought was interesting because all this time I had thought the legacy was what the computer was called, but I guess it's not. So
I think the legacy is just the collection of
yeah,
information we
yeah,
have about the past or whatever.
yeah, the database or whatever. Okay, so while he's talking to Lucas, the algorithm notifies him that there's a delta event going on in the he calls this central shaft, and a bunch of us in Discord were laughing about this.
Yeah, I saw
But
those comments on Reddit too.
that was unfortunate wording. But the earlier they had showed that Mark was handing gunpowder to Knox, and Knox was goofing off and pretending to drop it. Which and then Shirley was taking donations of paper in the cafeteria, and we had known that this was coming because this was a pretty big
Big
scene in the
scene from the
trailer.
trailer.
Yeah, so this was the part of the episode where they finally showed us that. But basically, I don't know, like it looked like it was something that Walker made, right? Because she lit the fuse, and she seems to be like the person, the go-to person for making things on a mechanical. So, but she lights it and it shoots. It went really far, right? I was actually kind of scared by it. When it shot up that fast, I was like, "Oh my god, it's gonna puncture their sun."
I was thinking about what would happen when it fell down, but I guess maybe they had accounted for that. But I don't
Oh
know. I feel like they
yeah,
almost dropped balls on each other a few episodes ago. So
yeah. But then they shut down the power, which was a significant part that was kind of easy to miss actually, because they shut down the power and they leave the power on in IT. Either that or like IT, because we know that IT has their own power, and so everybody is shouting like, "Oh, why is IT still on?" And Bernard actually looks really upset when he sees that, and he runs into IT. And that gets explained later, I think, by Camille.
I just thought this was an interesting thing because I don't know. I come from like working in technology and to me I kind of always thought that like even from like early on in season 1 that IT had separate power supplies and that
Yeah.
everyone knew this because IT was such an important aspect of like the the maintenance on the silo that it didn't even occur to me until the arguments that happened in this episode and like kind of when we heard a few episodes ago that there's like maybe different power to IT that it would even be in question that IT has a backup and
Mm-hmm.
like source of power because that's just like how IT works in our world. So
Yeah.
this all confused me a lot because I in my mind I had already assumed that it would be the case and I guess it isn't because people were very upset that IT seemed to still have power during this event.
Well, I mean, to the people in the silo, I don't think they necessarily understand where the true power lies. I think it kind of seems like there's three branches of their government, right? There's IT, there's judicial, and there's the sheriff. Actually, what would the mayor fall under?
I figured that was whatever the sheriff is, right? Because they
Okay,
always like work together.
yeah. But yeah, so it kind of seems like the people actually think the power lies with the judge because based off of what Shirley said, right? She said to everybody else, Judge Meadows has the power, but the actual power is with IT. And I feel like Bernard or the IT heads in general maybe hide behind that kind of
Yeah, and kind of
hidden aspect, like they
deflect
fly
from
under the
that.
radar, yeah, kind of thing. So they hold the real power, but people don't know that. So that's like a level of safety for them, I guess. So, but yeah, so like I said, he looks really upset. And I had talked about this on Discord with other people because I didn't really understand at first why he looked so upset. And so people had said that it was because, in season one, he was mad about the mayor calling for the power shutdown or the power holiday. And he was mad. And I guess that was because people were saying that maybe it was because he had to coordinate his own shutdown to make it look like they were having the
Yeah.
same power outage that everybody else was. And in this case, like, he didn't know. But then I was asking, like, why didn't this happen when when they
When they
did
shut it
the dog
down a
toys?
few episodes ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And like somebody said that, oh, he knew about that, but I don't necessarily think he did. So, but I don't know. He did go down the stairs and he met them there, so maybe he did. He had some kind of hunch of what they were gonna do, but maybe he didn't know exactly when. But he had them. He had his janitorial people maybe watching to know when they could do it. I don't know, but yeah, that was interesting. I didn't really think about him doing like coordinated shutdowns of their own power to make it look like they're in the same league as everybody else. So Bernard addresses the sheriff's department and he tells him that he thinks that Billings is being held hostage in the down deep. And then they go to Amundsen, who says that Sims hasn't signed his warrant because he wants a warrant to go and search supply to find out how much gunpowder they have after like the rocket thing, which is fair because I mean it's concerning, right? If you have people like with supply of gunpowder and you want to know what they're gonna do next. But when he like finds out that he hasn't signed his warrant, he storms into Sims's office, and I thought that this scene was really interesting because he yells at him basically and says, "I promoted you so that I never have to see your face again." And that was kind of surprising because I guess I had thought that he still planned on working with him, just in a limited capacity, maybe even to just like as a petty aside, just to be able to watch him like be a judge and not have that much power. But I guess he literally just never wanted to see him again, which I guess means he's still really pissed about him for the medals thing.
Yeah, I never got the impression that Bernard liked Sims or ever wanted to work with him again, so I just assume that's why he's been brushing him off, like,
Hmm.
practically since we started seeing the two of them.
And it was good because we finally got an answer as to why he didn't want to make Sims his shadow. He says that he lacks curiosity and that's essential in an IT head. And that I think is a fair assessment because Sims does seem like he's like muscle, like a goon type of guy, not really like a guy who's gonna like Lucas, like staring at stars. Like I think that's something that Sims would just scoff at and think is beneath him, kind of thing, right? Like a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good explanation, but I also think that Bernard just wanted to hurt Sims, so I think whether that's true or not, I think he said that to be cruel.
Hmm.
Like, I think he probably had a lot of reasons he didn't want to take Sims as a shadow, and he just was like, I'm yelling at you and I want to be mean right now, so I'm gonna pick at something I know that will hurt you.
So Comet gets a lot of crap for his acting, but I thought this was actually a good scene for him, between the two of them fighting. And it was a good scene between the characters because it kind of brought them to a head and it shows that the severance between them is pretty complete. I mean, they're at war with each other, right? I don't think we're going to see them working together very much. And I don't know if this is what Camille has been aiming for because it kind of seems like it is.
I mean, I guess because right here is when Sims learns about what Camille's been
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah, and you can tell by
And he clearly
Bernard's.
didn't know.
Yeah, and you can tell by Bernard's face that he's, like, enjoying the fact that he can tell that Sims didn't know, right? He's, like, digging it in. Okay, so let's go to Lucas. Lucas figures out that it's not letters, it's numbers, and then he figures out that he needs to find a book and go to page 77. And he tells him, and I thought this was funny. He looks so proud of himself. He says, basically, we need a book that's over 140 years old. And I was just like, Lucas, they're all 140 years old. Everything in the legacy, unless people have been printing books while they're in the silo, they're all 140 years old. But yeah.
I thought he was more proud of the fact that, because doesn't he also say it needs to be a book that isn't in the legacy? So, and it's out in the
uh,
silo somewhere. So I thought that was what he was proud of. Not just that they
okay,
needed a
okay.
book, but that it specifically he needs a book that is not in this room because it would have had to been something that like lived outside of the legacy.
Okay, so um for people who don't want spoilers, you can like fast forward like 30 seconds or so. But they had a shot of something in like this fan theories video that Rebecca Ferguson did, and they show somebody taking a copy of the pact out of a bag and handing it, and then they open it, and on the and on the title page it says Salvador Quinn at the top. So it's gonna be, I think, a copy of the pact, unless that was like a red herring, like the notes in the rocket. Because actually I forgot to mention that the notes in the rocket, when they showed it in the trailer, it said Julia lives, but in the actual episode it had like a much longer note about mechanical and lies and stuff like that. So
Oh, you think the book that they need is you don't think the book that they need is The Wizard of Oz?
no, I don't. I think it's going to be the pact, but we'll see.
But everyone knows the pact, so that wouldn't make any sense because then
Well, I
anyone would be able to decode it.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe it's specifically Salvador Quinn's copy, because if you look at the description of next week's episode, the episode is called "The Book of Quinn," and it talks about how he goes and talks to the descendants of Salvador Quinn. So I'm guessing they hand down a book or something, or like his copy of the pack or something. Something in it must contain. Maybe he wrote something on page 77. I don't know. So
I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I just assumed that it was going to be The Wizard of Oz. Like in the moment that Lucas said that they need a book, I was like, obviously it's The Wizard of Oz because that's the only relevant book they've shown this season up until now.
well, I
So
mean,
I didn't get any impression that that wasn't the right choice.
Meadows has other books in her the kind though, or in her apartment. She has
But narratively, they didn't
Beowulf.
bring attention to any of the other
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. Other people think that it's the picture book, the Georgia one, but I think, like we've talked about, the book
Well,
got
that
burned
one's
in the
dead,
oven.
so
Yeah, there's only one page left, and unless a picture book, picture books are rarely that long, with page like over 77 pages. And somebody in Discord had looked at high res screenshots, and like page that Billings I think is looking at before he burns the book. It's like it looks like it's almost at the end, and it's page 41. So I don't think it's that one. And like we said, it's destroyed already. So, but then some people were saying, oh, maybe it's the specific page that Billings has. But I don't
that
know.
would all be way too convenient. I feel like these people have never read like a
Yeah.
book or watched a TV show before if they think that, but
Plus,
who
that
knows?
page is in the down deep, and I don't know how they would get it all the way back up there. So, like, how is it going to go
Yeah,
from Billings to Lucas? I feel like that's going to take too long. So,
I just think it's The Wizard of Oz. I guess we'll see. I'm just
yeah.
more confused as to what Bernard's even doing here because once Lucas repaired the hard drive, I don't know why Bernard didn't just take over doing the rest of this investigation. Like, all Lucas did was ask the legacy to, like, solve a cipher for him. Couldn't Bernard have done that?
I I guess, but like other people have said that he has a lot more going on than Lucas. Like Lucas doesn't have anything else to do, right?
But he seems
Bernard,
kind of like a control freak,
yeah, he
so I
does.
would
He
not have
does.
expected him to wanna let go of something so, like, secretive and that he has, like, sole control over. But yeah, maybe you're right, maybe he's just really, really busy and can't focus on that.
Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about Carl and Walker, because we learned a little bit of information about them. Walker was really concerned about what happened to Carla last episode, and now we learned that Bernard is keeping her in that horrible place that they had Patrick Kennedy in, because they had a hood over her head and she was in a dark room, and I guess it's called judicial seclusion. And so Bernard goes to see Carla, and he wants to know how much gunpowder they have, which is like going back to like what he wanted the warrant for. But she says that she'll tell him if she gets to find out what happens to Doc, Shirley, and Walker. And I thought it was like decent amount of leverage, but he just is just like no, and he walks out. He's kind of a hard ass here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of leverage on her side here. Like, obviously, she has like a shadow, and Bernard can,
Yeah, that's
assume
true.
just make that person tell him what he wants to know. So he is the mayor of the whole entire silo.
Yeah, and the IT head. All right. And so meanwhile, Walker is desperate to know about Carla, and they tell her that all the communication is still shut down, and Billings doesn't even have anybody that he can trust to ask about it. So she's desperate, and what she does, I was really confused here because she turns on a camera that she apparently disabled before, and she looks at it, and then she looks kind of shocked, I guess, and then she shuts it right back off, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think was going through her mind there? Did she turn it on and then regret it and then turn it off, or was she
I
just trying to
assume she
send a
turned it on.
message?
Yeah, I assume she turned it on intentionally for a very short amount of time to send a message because I think she must know that people are watching those.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't particularly get surprise from her look, so I don't know. I just assumed that it was
Hmm.
part of a plan that she had.
So Amundsen reports back to Bernard that Walker turned her camera on, and then he shows him footage that they had taken. Because like when they, back when the Bernard had given his speech, they had held Carla and Walker in the deputy station, and then they showed like the camera zeroing in on them, and I guess that's what they were establishing for this part. They show them holding hands, and then they tell us that they were divorced 25 years ago, so they weren't just like a couple; they were like married.
Yeah, that seemed really weird to me because I was like, wouldn't you have information on all of these people, and wouldn't you have just been able to find out that this was the case, or is this reveal just supposed to be for the audience? But I already assumed something was going on between them, so I'm
Yeah,
not really
and
sure why that seemed was supposed to be surprising.
yeah, and like I don't know, if you're married, it's not exactly a leap that they would still mean something to each other, right? I mean, I don't really understand why Bernard needed that footage of them holding hands in a brief moment when they're like scared together to make that kind of like assessment. I don't know. I just feel like if you know that they're ex-wives, then you would just assume that they still mean something to each other, at least in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
But once again, they mentioned 25 years ago. I feel like they keep digging in this 25-year marker. Okay, next we're gonna go to the detective duo, Hank and Billings.
I
Who are,
love these two.
I know they're
They're like
so
my
cute.
favorite plot line right now.
They have their own little side detective show going on. But yeah, so they go to Knox and Shirley, and they're pissed off about the rocket. Although Billings was actually there, and he looked kind of like in awe when they were firing it up. So I guess maybe it's just like fireworks. You're just like, oh, wow. But then, like afterwards, he's like, "Hey, why didn't you tell me about that?" But yeah, so Knox and Shirley just kind of brush him off, and they tell him if they really want to help, then they should find out who poisoned the food, and that becomes like basically their police procedural mission for the episode. They question a man named Martin, who is a listener, and they learn about an order to kill Knox and Shirley. So they go to them and they take them into protective custody, basically. And then Hank goes to Frances, who is Patrick's niece, as a reminder to people. She tells him to get lost, but then Kathleen shows up at the deputy station and says she followed Frances to the cafeteria and that things are getting out of hand. And then they go and they reveal that the lady who had first told them about the rat poison is the person who actually poisoned the food, and that she was doing it to save her mom because her mom is above the barricade and she's in the medical wing. And so basically, she was just doing that to keep her safe. And she planted the note about the kill order to turn them against each other. And it was kind of interesting how they handled that because she, I guess, thought that they were going to kill her. But they tell her that no, they're not
Do
going to kill her.
something bad to her.
Yeah. But they basically say, no, they're mechanical. They're not going to send her to the mines. They're just going to give her some shit jobs for a while, apparently. And then it'll be fine after a while. And they feel like,
That was like a weird to me that was just I don't know, a weird character development because it's Knox who says that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it didn't strike me as something that Knox would do, but he had gone all soft and been like, "We're a family. We're not going to do anything bad to you." And yeah, I don't know. It didn't sound like Knox to me.
I thought in general, like, that speech just kind of felt like it was for the audience. Like, I don't think it needed to be said to her. I don't know. Okay, Sims. The Sims family. Apparently, when you become judge, you go and raid the relic locker. Because Robert Sims gave his son the duck relic.
I love the duck relic.
Yeah, it's
It's
back.
my favorite thing. I love the mythology that everyone in the show has come up with surrounding the duck relic.
That it's an elevator.
Or just like, yeah, everyone has a theory about it. Sims tells his son that it's a magical, protective, lucky charm thing, and meanwhile, I'm just over here like, yeah, it dispenses candy. Kids do like Pez dispensers.
Someone in Discord says, "Too bad they don't know that Pez tastes terrible." I was like, "What? No, it doesn't. Just eat strawberry Pez. Strawberry Pez is awesome." But yeah, so I guess she's like Camille's like kind of upset about that, and I guess I would be too. Like, you give your little son a contraband item, but then I don't know. She's a raider. He's a judge. I don't think she has anything to worry about. That kid's probably going to be fine. But yeah, so as we talked about earlier, Camille tells Sims that Bernard turned the lights and IT off after he ran in, so that basically confirms that it's like a sham. He wants to hide the fact that they have backup power, I guess. And then later on, she comes home and Sims is sitting in the dark, and somebody posted a joke post on the subreddit that she comes home and she says, "You're gonna strain your eyes sitting in the dark like that," which is funny because everybody's always complaining about the darkness.
Oh
Oh,
my god, this episode was terrible for the darkness, in
it
my opinion.
was.
And I'm like, people on Reddit are always like, oh, you just need like a nice new TV. And I have a really nice OLED TV and it's huge. But unfortunately in the daytime I do have a lot of ambient light, and
Mm.
we watched this in the morning, and yeah, this episode in particular was like probably one of the worst that I've seen for like being really really dark.
So for me, I can usually see everything going on, but it's just still unnecessarily dark. Like, like for instance, the cafeteria. We were just talking about how they reveal that this lady Maeve is the lady who poisoned the food. So they're all standing there. You can see all the lights are on in the cafeteria, and yet everything is so dark. You can't see. You can barely see these people.
Yeah, I don't know. We've talked about the darkness thing before, and I agree that it's completely unnecessary, but like there were some bits, even yeah, like you said, in fully lighted areas that I couldn't really tell what was going on. Like even in like Sims's office and stuff, there's like a window right behind him into the central part of the silo, and I like couldn't see.
I noticed that too. It was too bright behind him, right? And you basically had a hard time seeing his face because of that. But yeah, so Sims confronts Camille about what Bernard told him, and she explains that he needs friends, and I guess she's referring to the people in Mechanical. Am I right about that? And he
I,
needed
I
Bernard not to
guess.
suspect him, and so that's why she didn't tell him. But he's still upset, and he says, "No more secrets. We don't make a move unless it's together." And I'm just like, dude, she still has secrets. This is not the end of it. That lady has like a lot more going on. And Angela, you and me had talked about this beforehand, but I don't understand what they're doing with Camille because she makes him look really stupid.
Yeah, she definitely makes him look like he's always behind on what information he should know. Like Bernard's constantly using her against Sims,
Mm-hmm.
and Sims himself constantly doesn't know what's going on. I can only hope that they're just setting something up way further down the line,
Yeah.
and we just don't know what it is yet, maybe.
Cause it's not like I'm like pro Sims or anything, but I just thought that he was like the big character as opposed to her. And I don't understand why they've done this to him. They've basically trashed his character. And not just with Bernard, but with her. I think she's doing a lot more damage to him. I mean, Bernard is, but like in the eyes of like the viewers, I feel like she has really reduced him, and he didn't even really need reducing much. um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't understand what they're doing with the two of them. So she seriously got some kind of character promotion, though.
Yeah, if you'd asked me if I thought she was going to be important, I would have been like, no, definitely not. Who is this woman? Like at the beginning of the season, but I maybe we're just setting up like a I don't know if you'd call it like a redemption arc, but like a turn for like Camille and Sims, and they're going to be like on the side of mechanical
Maybe.
because it doesn't seem like she is necessarily on anyone's side right now.
Yeah.
And Sims also doesn't have like the same sympathies like that say Hank and Billings have either.
Yeah.
So
He's very insular. I think he mostly just cares about his wife and kid. So, but that's probably another reason that Bernard didn't want him to be IT Shadow. He doesn't. I think he probably understands that Sims doesn't think in terms of the silo as a whole. He thinks more in the terms of his family and how it affects them. So that's not a good trait in an IT head. So because I mean, look at what Bernard has had to do, right? In his mind, anyway. He's killed Meadows, and I actually forgot to mention this. He basically confirms that he says a woman I had some affection for, right? So
yeah.
that I think confirms that they had he at least he had feelings for her and not just like professional way. So okay, so one more quick thing to discuss before we go over to Silo 17. We had talked about their kissing last episode. So Knox asked Shirley why she kissed him, and she insists that he kissed her. And then they get interrupted by Billings and Hank. But later on, they're arguing in the deputy station. I thought this scene was really cute, where he's like, "You ever consider that maybe you're just a pain in the ass?" And she like makes like to punch him. I thought this was, I like the two of them together. They're amusing.
Yeah, I that line's really funny because we watched the show with Japanese subtitles for my
Oh,
husband to
really?
read, and the translation in that particular moment is him calling her a problematic woman. Like that's like the direct translation of the words from
That's
that they use in
funny.
Japanese.
All right, let's go over to Jules and Solo. So they talk about what she needs to do, and she needs to restart a pump that's 8 levels underwater. And so this is a significant amount of distance that she has to cover, because I think we've established that some of the levels, maybe not all of them, but it looks like at least some of them are 3 levels high. Not levels, 3 stories high. Because the residential levels, we've seen that they have like apartments on top of apartments in some areas. So it's not just all like one single story on one level.
This kind of annoys me because I always got the impression that a silo like this, the floors would have to have a lot between them in terms of like
Hmm.
just for like structural integrity. But then
Yeah,
we had that scene
where they're cutting through.
or a couple of episodes ago where they're just cutting through the floors like there wouldn't be literal feet of cement and steel and other things between them. So that was I don't know, that really annoyed me because I'm like, which is it? Is it like
Yeah.
are the floors not far apart or are they actually far apart? Because it seems to me like they would be very far apart.
And actually, if they are like that and there's multiple levels in each level and they had to get to from 130 to 120 or somewhere on there, that means that they had to cut through 20 to 30 storage closets, which is kind of a lot of
Yeah,
cement
no,
cutting.
it's a lot to do in a short amount of time, and I also just even if the levels themselves aren't multi-story, but like you said, some of them are,
Yeah.
just the amount of structure needed between each level, like
Yeah.
even regular old buildings in our world
Yeah.
have like room between the floors. So, but I agree. Either way, it's very. I think the distance. Did they say how far down she actually needed to dive? I forget.
She says something like, at one point where Solo is talking to her and she starts getting really sarcastic with him, and she's like, if you have 300 feet of cable that you can pull down to me or something like that. I get the impression that that's what they've calculated, the distance that she
Yeah.
has to go, which is 300 feet, or around there. So that's pretty far.
Yeah. I love this scene though, the right after this where they're arguing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because she's just like, I like how she just tells him she's scared. Because I feel like she's not normally the type of person to admit something like that.
Well, yeah, okay, so what happens is basically Solo, after he, like, tells her about a bunch of stuff, he starts talking to her about the bends, and how that if she comes up too fast, like, because he's, I guess, going through, like, what they're gonna be doing, and he tells her that when he pulls her back up, they have to go slow because the nitrogen bubbles in her blood is gonna it can kill her, and that's what scares her. And she's like, no, she's not doing it, you say, you go and do it. But then he has a sobbing meltdown. And he has such a range of meltdowns. Yeah, this was another childish one, and he basically revealed to us that he thinks that he's responsible for what happened to Silo 17. He talks about how he's a failure, he's a fuck up, and if he dies, and that'll be it. And so it kind of seems like he's carrying a lot of guilt about everything. He thinks that not just the two people outside that he doesn't want to talk about, but maybe he thinks that he's responsible for everybody dying.
Yeah, I think that just speaks to his like you said, like his like childish mindset. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely the type of thing like a
Mm-hmm.
child would think. Like even if it had nothing to do with him, he
Yeah.
might think it has
Yeah.
something to do with him.
Yeah. It's kind of like when like children think it's their fault that their parents split up, or like when a parent dies when they're young, they think that it's because of something they did or things like that. And so I don't think that he's responsible, but I think the childish mind in him probably thinks that he is. So I hope we'll get to see that soon this season. I would like to see it this season. Just putting that out there. Okay, so after he has his sobbing meltdown, she changes her mind, and she's like the grumpy older sister again. She's like, "Fine, I'll do it." And so while they're like prepping for her to go down, he reveals that he made her goggles, right? He took some welding
Yeah,
goggles and he
it
made.
was very cute.
Yeah, that was cute.
It's funny how Jules like doesn't want to rely on his knowledge for things. Like,
You'd think she'd be drilling him, right? Like, tell me about this and tell me
yeah,
about that and what about this? But she just seems to
yeah, like
kind of
he
like,
clearly knows about water. And like
yeah.
he said, he went on like a reading spree apparently about water things. And she just has such a narrow focus that doesn't even like ask him for advice or help really.
Okay, so I thought it was really funny that he also tells her about swimming, and it's like, oh, so he tells her about swimming, and that's enough to make her an expert swimmer. Because I mean, I guess it makes. I think we talked about this last season. Me and Kelly, is that they probably don't know what swimming is, but do you think they know what fish is? Because
Um
he mentions fish to her, and I don't know if, I mean, it would make sense for them to have tanks and raise fish in with aquaponics,
I was
but
gonna say it would make sense for them to have fish because fish reproduce very
mhm,
quickly and
yeah,
can be kept in kind of small
yeah,
containment. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have fish at all and
mhm,
just like used land animals or some other type of like protein. I think you'd have to go back to like every episode and see if anyone ever mentions fish or shows fish being like served or cooked, but
yeah.
my guess is that they probably don't have fish.
I don't know. I mean, it makes sense though, because fish, like you said, they reproduce quickly and they're clean, and they're a good protein source, and like they can help with like aquaponics and growing things. So I don't know. Okay, so yes, they show Solo helping Jules descend after she goes into the water, and it kind of looks like someone is watching him. I didn't notice this the first two times I was watching the episode, but when I went back to go look for something, I noticed that like the camera was shaking a little, so it kind of seems like they're trying to imply that it's a person watching him.
If I recall, this has happened numerous times since she got to Silo 17 because I recall like in like episode 1 or maybe like 3, my husband and I watch a lot of horror movies and we almost always point out this one shot which is like what we call stalker cam where someone's
Uh,
clearly watching from like a secret hiding place and looking on to like the main characters or whatever. And they've definitely done it before where they framed the shot as though someone was like creepily watching from a hidden space because I remember my husband being like, "Oh yeah, look at this stalker cam they have going here." So I don't know if I necessarily thought there was like someone else in the silo, but I did notice the shot because I can't like not notice it anymore.
mm. Okay, so Jules successfully turns the pump on and then she goes back to the bridge where she had tied the weight. But while she's untying it, it slips down and falls out because I guess it's not secured up top anymore. They show the rope from
Yeah.
up above, like falling down quickly, and then her air supply stops, so she has to rush up, and it's like this was pretty predictable because I mean he's telling her about the bends and how she has to come up slowly, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, there's gonna be something happening. It's like pretty obvious foreshadowing, right? That something was gonna happen and she was gonna have to just rush up. But he does tell her earlier that to help fix it, she's gonna have to go back in the water. So
Back
my guess,
down. Yeah.
yeah, he says something like she has to go back down at least 20 feet. So it seems like that's gonna be what she's gonna have to do at some point next episode. But so she comes out of the water and she's like calling out for him, and she sees an axe on the ground, which explains the rope being severed. And I think that goes back to the first episode when she found the ropes. People thought that they just broke, but to me they looked cut. And I think this basically confirms that the rope was cut back in the first episode. And she also sees a blood trail and she sees a bloody arrow. So it kind of seems like Solo got shot by a bow and arrow. And the blood trail is going up the stairs, not into IT. So I don't think he was able to go back to the vault.
Yeah, this is interesting because, like, it also harkens back to when he was freaking out about maybe leaving the vault unlocked. Like,
Yeah.
if he knows there's someone else or multiple people in the silo with him, that freak out makes like a lot more sense. It's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
like an irrational freak out anymore of someone who hasn't
Mm-hmm.
been outside the vault in a while. It's like an actual fear where he was like, oh
Legitimate fear.
no.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they do like you called it, the stalker cam. They show that someone is watching her from, I guess, maybe like one more level up from a balcony,
Yeah.
and that's where the episode ends. I really like this episode overall. It was very exciting. It went by really quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it. It was a little choppier, I feel like, in its cutting and jumping around than the last one,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
also I liked a lot more of what was going on, so I was
yeah,
like fine with
yeah.
it. Like I really was interested in some of the stuff that was happening, like obviously in Silo 17 and with like Billings and Hank. Like I love that storyline.
Yeah, at one point I thought maybe the person who cut episode 5, which I complained about a lot, was back. So it's possible. But yeah, like you said, the things that were going on were a lot more exciting. And so like it didn't really feel as bad as the last time. But yeah, in general, I really like this one. So let's move on to community reactions. Speculation on who this third person or more persons, we don't know yet, and who they might be.
Yeah, I saw a lot of like chatter about this on Reddit, a lot of theories about it too. I think personally that it's probably someone from Silo 17 who's managed to survive like Solo has, possibly a person or people who are connected to those two corpses outside the vault that he doesn't want to talk about. I saw some other theories about like if it could be someone from another silo or someone different entirely. I don't know how if that seems likely to me, but I guess that's also possible that other people have made it to Silo 17 before, especially since like Solo asks early on to Jules like which silo she came from, which I think we all kind of thought originally just meant that he knew about the fates of the other silo, but I guess we don't know how he knows that.
Hmm.
He could have encountered people from those silos, and that's how he knows.
So I think it's probably the simplest answer, and it's just that not everybody wanted to go outside. So it's just there's
Yeah.
just people who there are other people in there who stayed inside instead of everybody. I don't think literally everyone went outside other than Solo. I have no doubt that he's been all by himself in the vault for a very, very long time, other than fighting people who come to like try to get in. But yeah, I think it's just Silo 17 people who never went outside. So okay, so a lot of things people are something else that a lot of people are talking about is Jules's dive, and for me, I just assumed that it was going to be another one of those things. It wasn't as bad for me as like the cable drop or the generator or things like that. I don't know. I was fine with it. So, but she does go from scared of water to expert diver. That's a little that's a little more bothersome to me. But I'm just gonna just pretend it's just fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, the far-fetched engineering stuff sort of bothers me, but also I'm just like I'm one of those people who's just willing to be like, yeah, whatever, just have it for the sake of the story. But I did notice though that they like toned down how much of watching the like or knowing about the plan and how it worked for like this particular dive compared to some of the other stuff they showed in the previous episodes of her doing a lot more. Like I think they wanted to align that both to save screen time, but also to not give us a reason, even more reason to like harp on the bad engineering. They were like, yeah, she just made all these stuff to make the dive work. Like, just go with that. Don't think too hard about it.
I think the next far-fetched thing that we're gonna have to deal with is how fast the silo is drained of water. I think it's probably gonna magically be just like, oops, it's fine now. There's no water.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of calculations on the subreddit from like last episode where people were talking about how fast pumps could pump out water and like it ranged like from a small number of years to a large number of years.
Yeah.
So if they do manage to drain even a significant amount of water from this, that's going to be a pretty seriously far-fetched
Where is it
thing that
gonna
they could have
go? I'm
done.
assuming they have a cavern like the one that 18 has, and that's where the water gets pumped into because that's
But wouldn't that already be underwater?
I don't know. It depends on how it's
Because that was
connected.
at the bottom of the silo.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the water is like maybe that part is sealed. I don't know. I hope.
I don't know if we well, okay, so I think with this though, I don't know if the water even needs to be pumped out. So we may not even return to this.
Hmm.
Like it may just be one of those like, oh, she fixed it and now water won't keep rising. But I don't right now, I guess we know there are tunnels or
Mm-hmm.
we think there are tunnels at the bottom of the silo, but there's no indication that that's how she's planning to do anything, right? Like right now, her plan is to get out from through the top again. So I kind of hope we don't need the silo to be cleared of water and just we kind of just let that one slide.
They're gonna use the water to water the surface, and then everything's gonna turn green for real.
And the world is fixed. They just
Yes,
needed all the water that
yes.
was in the silos.
This is how they bring the world back. They pump out the water from 17. How's that for a crackpot theory?
Not even the most crackpot one I've seen,
Oh,
honestly.
really?
There are some pretty insane theories out there on the internet about this show, I feel like. I think another big topic that people are discussing is Bernard's acting, or the actor who plays Bernard. I really love him. I liked him going off on Sims. I liked his conversation with Carla. He's like knocking it out of the park, and people had a lot of good comments about that.
So something exciting, the mod team of the Silo series subreddit is working with Apple TV, and this week we have some exclusive behind the scenes images to share. So be sure to go over there and check it out. There's some cool ones of them filming Rebecca as she's doing her dive, which looks nice and blue and bright, as opposed to what we saw on screen. And then there's like some cool images of like it kind of looks like the residential areas possibly of. Did you think it was 18? Did you look at them?
I didn't look at them.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there's one of like it looks like Resident Tours, and it's very colorful. I don't know if it's 17 because in general 17 seems to be more decorated than 18 was. Even with all the shrubbery and things growing around it, it seems like more colorful. Even like the bell, I think that Jules has to ring to signal to Solo. It looks like it's like designed with some kind of like colorful imagery on it. So but yeah, go check that out. It was really cool. And we hope to have more to share each week going on. So, and that basically covers the breakdown. It was a really exciting episode this week, and I can't wait to see what the Book of Quinn next week shows.
Yeah, I love lore and world building, so I'm always excited for these things that are gonna maybe give us like backstory.
And we only have 3 episodes left, so I feel like from here on out, it's going to be kind of quick, right? I feel like a lot of what they've been slow burning, what everyone has been complaining about slow burning, but they're gonna I think are gonna bring everything to a head. It's going to be really exciting, so I'm really looking forward to that. What we've been watching, I watched Squid Game season 2 in a day. I was pretty
So
happy
did
with
I.
it. It was quick watching. I was pretty happy with it until I got to the end, and it just felt like incomplete. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I knew going into it, I had read like a review that basically said it's like half a season and that the other half is basically going to be what season 3 is. So I already had that expectation that there was going to be like not a complete arc going on. I still liked it though. I liked some of the ways they like subverted the season 1 stuff and made it new, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll always enjoy things like that though. It's one of my favorite like genres of like thrillers. It's like people trapped in a game, a deadly game.
So I also started a rewatch of The Boys because I had tried to start season 4 when it came out, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm so lost. I'm gonna have to rewatch everything so that I can finish season 4." And then I just never got around to it. And then so I watched season 1. I had forgotten how good that season was, so I'm starting season 2, and hopefully I can get to 4. But yeah,
We watched Black Doves, which was actually really good. It's got a very like diplomat feel to it. So
yeah, I liked it. It was Kira Knightley is taking Paul Rudd lessons in not aging. she looks she looks really good. But yeah, that's about I think that's all I'm watching. Any last thoughts?
no, that's all I'm doing lately too. It was just a slow holiday. I'm working this week, but as Crystal knows, freelancers almost always have a lot to do. What's a holiday again?
Yeah, what's a holiday? On that note, Wires from the Deep is brought to you by Pico's House, which offers a comprehensive slate of services for fiction authors. You can visit www.picoshouse.com for details. And Angela is also a fiction editor.
Yeah, I'm the owner of Lambda Editing, and I specialize in editing services and beta reading for self published authors. My website is lambdaediting.com.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Wires from the Deep. If you're enjoying our podcast, be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can leave us a comment and let us know your thoughts on our discussion. You can join conversations about the show on the Silo Series subreddit and on the Down Deep Discord, where you can participate in discussions with other fans or join our Friday night watch parties. And at the watch parties, I have been giving a time based quiz every week. It's 10 questions, and you get more points the faster you answer correctly. So people have been really enjoying that. So if you want to hop on there, that's another fun thing that we do. If you want to contact me or Angela, you can leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos, or you can email us at crystal@thedowndeep.net. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.